Anno 117 Pax Romana lets you build diagonally. I know I'm coming hot out of the gate, but that's a big improvement and I had to tell you about it right away. Now, you've already read the title. I got to play Anno 117 Pax Romana early, and today I finally get to tell you about it and share my experiences. I can also confirm that the game is coming out late this year and you can wishlist it today. Now, if you're unfamiliar with the Anno series, it's a historical city builder and real-time strategy game, and this iteration is set during the Roman Empire. You step into the role of a provincial governor and work towards building a powerful city or even a network of them. This is a game that I've been excited about since it was first announced. And about a week ago, I got the chance to play a 4-hour demo, and I'll be showing you footage throughout the video of that session while I walk you through my experiences and tell you what stood out to me. Now, before we dive in, I want to be clear. This video was sponsored by Ubisoft. That said, I wouldn't be making this video if I didn't actually want to, so credit to Ubisoft for supporting a video that I would have been happy to make either way. If you're new around here, hi, I'm Phil. I'm a real-life city planner who's been making videos about city building games here on YouTube since 2020. And I've played Anno before, but I'm far from an expert. I'm the kind of guy who goes bankrupt planting trees, so keep that in mind, because the way I play Anno 117 is probably different from the other playthroughs that you might see. The version of the game I played was, of course, an early build. And while there's a few rough edges here and there, I often forgot that the game wasn't final. The level of polish is genuinely impressive. That said, the build I played only had campaign mode enabled, and I couldn't change my character's model, name, or difficulty settings. There weren't any customization options available, but I'd be shocked if those things didn't make it into the final game. Upon starting, I was told by none other than the Emperor of Rome himself that I had been appointed the governor of the island of Latium. The region had been devastated by a natural disaster, and it was up to me to guide its future. And the intro makes it clear that no two cities will be the same. And while I didn't fully grasp what that meant at first, I definitely would by the end. I've got to point this out. The intros of games always have these really beautiful pre-rendered sequences, and then you jump into the game and sometimes you're surprised that it doesn't look anything like it. This game looks very similar to the pre-rendered sequences, which is really exciting. It's a beautiful game. Everything about it looks fantastic. From the landscapes to the water to the character models, all of it looks outstanding. It is beautiful, which you're going to see in just a moment. And I really love how bright and vibrant this game looks. I think that's a nod to its Mediterranean setting, but it just looks much more colorful than Anno 1800, in my opinion. After the intro, you're dropped quickly into a game and given a few quests to walk you through the core mechanics. As someone who hasn't played Anno in a while, that was super helpful. Your first quest is to build your villa, a not-so-subtle reminder that you, the player, are actually a character in this world. And it's not just decorative, it houses your advisors and will become the main target if you're ever invaded. It's functional and it's important. And as a result, you're told this.
If an island is invaded, your villa will be the main target. I'd say place it far from the coast.
And yes, the game is fully voice acted. The quality is great. And if you're into the story elements of Anno, this one feels more like an interactive novel than a wall of text, and I personally really enjoy that. As I went to place my villa, I noticed something surprising. You can build it diagonally. That's right, Anno isn't locked to a grid anymore. You can build diagonal roads and rotate buildings in 45-degree increments. It's a small change that makes a massive difference. From there, I spent a while building the basics. Woodcutters, lumber camps, and homes, standard Anno fare, which makes this a great place to compare the UI and the controls to Anno 1800. The user interface should feel familiar to Anno 1800 players. On the left, you've got your quest log, notifications, research, religion overview, trade routes, relationships, and info views. Below that is your minimap and time controls, plus a panel showing fertility data for the selected region. At the bottom of your screen, you've got your primary build menu. Across the top, your city stats and finances. It's all recognizable, but more polished in my opinion. There are a few quirks worth mentioning though. If you like the ability to toggle a blueprint mode easily or switch between building categories, you might be a little disappointed. Blueprint mode is now a submenu toggle instead of a global one. Though there might be a keyboard shortcut, I wasn't allowed to look in the settings menu. And I couldn't figure out a way to sort buildings by progression or type anymore, though I always thought that that was kind of confusing and it got me lost in the menus, so I guess that's an improvement in my opinion. I've got to admit though, I still find navigating the menus in Anno to be a little bit confusing, particularly if you haven't played in a while. It always feels to me like I should be able to hit escape to exit out of the menus and return to the root of them, and that's just not how it works. I did get used to it after a while, but if you hope for improvement there, you're not going to find it. And if you liked how it worked in Anno 1800, well, you'll feel right at home. And again, it is worth mentioning this is an early build, so who knows, maybe they'll change it by the time the game is released. Gameplay-wise, you start out with very little money, and you bleed it fast. Especially if, like me, you get distracted by diagonal roads and landscaping tools and forget to actually build an economy. I was running at 3x speed and barely built anything, and yeah, it got rough quickly. Now, interestingly, these buildings weren't occupied right away, and as a result, they ended up deteriorating. Now, these will start to look nice again once they're occupied, but I like this subtle touch. It makes the city feel like things are happening in it. These are the sorts of details that I absolutely love. Once I built enough Libertas residents, Libertas being the farmers of Pax Romana, I unlocked the ability to place a sardine harbor as well as a porridge kitchen and oat fields. The harbor tools feel very similar to Anno 1800, functional and familiar. Next up, porridge. To make it, I placed the porridge kitchen and the oat farm, pretty much exactly like I would in Anno 1800. You probably want to place the kitchen near your citizens, unlike me who built it near the harbor, and the main farm building somewhere with room to grow, ideally not jammed against your city's edge. My early layout was a bit rough, but things improved from here. When placing production buildings, the roads will light up to show the maximum distance workers can travel, which makes it easy to plan. After setting up the farm, I got my first citizen interaction. It was small, but it confirmed that these side quests and dialogue are in the game, something that I personally love. These little moments give you something to do when you're stuck and you want to take a break from your main objectives. This is also where I learned how citizen needs are handled in Pax Romana, and it's a shift from previous games. Needs are grouped into categories, and you only need to meet one set of needs for each category to upgrade a residence. For instance, the Liberty need food, fashion, and public services. For food, you can give them sardines or porridge. Either one works. For fashion, you can give them tunics or hats. And for public services, either a market or a tavern will do. This is a big change, but it comes with some real strategic implications. First, it means you're going to want to be really thoughtful about what you produce. Each item has different attributes. Tunics, for instance, generate 2 denarii, while pilot's hats generate 1 denarius and 1 happiness point. Depending on what your city needs, you might prioritize one over the other. Second, it means that you can phase out certain production buildings later on. For example, let's say you're producing both porridge and sardines for your Liberty citizens. You could eventually refocus your sardine supply chain on garum production. Doing this would fulfill the need for your Liberty citizens while also producing a more refined food for your higher tier citizens. Now, I'll be honest, none of this fully clicked with me during the playthrough. But during the editing of this video, it all came together. So yeah, I basically built everything like it was still Anno 1800. And speaking of Anno 1800, thankfully, moving buildings around works exactly like it does in that game. One of my next tasks was to build a hemp farm, the input for tunics. And while doing this, I realized that I could move around my different building icons, which is really great if you like to customize your user interface. And here's something cool, the fields can conform to roads. That means you can have irregularly shaped farms that look way more natural. It's a small touch that, in my opinion, adds a lot aesthetically. If you're a big fan of landscaping and detailing like I am, this is going to be a game changer for you. And speaking of detailing, I'm happy to report that the tools in this game are a big step up from previous entries. The new grid tool makes placing landscaping decorations way easier, and it just seems like there are fewer conflicts between decor and buildings. In fact, I found myself going broke just placing trees because I was enjoying the process so much. Surprise, surprise. While I was waiting for buildings to level up, I switched into night mode, and I've got to say, it looks beautiful. The whole city just comes alive with lighting. Then I checked my budget and realized I was about to run out of money. I didn't really know how to generate income, which is a classic rookie mistake. So I loaded up a boat with wood and porridge and went exploring. Before long, I met Tarragon of Agarsis, a fellow governor who gave me a desperately needed 7,400 denarii and a few quests. One of them was a simple delivery, lumber, which I had on hand. Easy money. I then tried to request the trade treaty, but I didn't have enough diplomatic influence. I would have been able to unlock it by founding a religion and completing a few more contracts, or by taking out a loan from Tarragon, but for now, I was stuck and I moved on. Back in my city, I finally had Liberty ready to upgrade to plebeians. These residences are denser and more refined, but the upgrade comes with new needs. Most plebeian level buildings require clay roof tiles, so I had to unlock that supply chain. These buildings also produce pollution, which gave me a chance to use the new area of effect tools, which honestly are really well done. The Tyler building was especially interesting because it had to be placed on a river, and there are only so many suitable spots, so you'll need to plan ahead, especially since mills and other non-polluting buildings need to be placed on a river as well. Right after I placed the Tyler, I ran into a massive worker shortage, so I expanded my city quickly and added more residences, and I noticed my budget improving. And that's when things started to click. To make money, you need citizens, and to do that, you need to build places for them to live. So I kept building, working with the terrain, leaning into curves and angles, and throwing down roads like a man possessed. Did I need all of them? No. Did they make the city feel more organic and realistic? Absolutely. As my plebeian population grew, I unlocked bread and garum. Now, I had never heard of garum before, and it's kind of horrifying. Imagine if Worcester sauce went full send into fermented fish guts. That's garum, and apparently the Romans love this stuff. Anyway, both bread and garum fill plebeian food requirements, and I built up both supply chains because I thought that I had to. For bread, I needed a wheat farm, mill, and bakery, which also required charcoal. Luckily, I already had charcoal for my roof tile supply chain. And I think farming might be the reason I lost money so quickly. The tools are fantastic and flexible, and the detailing is so fun. So when I had to build my wheat farm, you better believe that I got lost and distracted and blew through my funds. Thankfully, as I was getting lost in my detailing,
There are 2 gentlemen here to see you. Unless, that is, I am seeing double.
the first one increased warehouse storage and reduced workforce needs. The other one cut my land tax in half, boosting passive income by 10%. Since I was broke, I took the income boost, but in hindsight, the warehouse upgrade might have actually helped me build a denser city. Regrets. After choosing a specialist, I realized for the first time that your villa is expandable. You can add modules to it over time, and unfortunately, I had built mine up against a mountain, so my expansion options were limited. More regrets, but at least this one's fixable. And while I should have finished upgrading my villa, I saw the budget again, panicked, and went back to expanding my bread supply chain. I built a mill and I placed a bakery, though I didn't have enough roof tiles to finish it. So I dropped it in blueprint mode and honestly stopped to admire the blueprints because they just look so cool. And before too long, I was able to construct it, which led to a shortage of plebeian workers. So I had to upgrade some of my libertists, which led to a shortage of them. So I decided to add more residences, but my city layout was starting to break down. All those diagonal roads I've been so excited about, they were making things inefficient. And since building upgrades often depend on proximity to other services, I had to do a little bit of redevelopment to make sure everything fit better. But this was actually a fun challenge. Once I reworked some of the street layout, my budget started to stabilize and I hit the small town milestone, which gave me the confidence to keep building. A few more homes and a whole bunch of janky roads later, and I had a balanced budget. And that means one thing: time to ignore supply chains and go full into landscaping mode. Trees, plazas, marble statues, all the detail work I've been waiting for. It was time. But that level of detail also raises the city's flammability, so it was time to build services. There are 3 core city services, 2 you're familiar with from previous Anno games and 1 that's new. The first one I built is the Vigil, basically a fire station, and I couldn't afford it right away, so I just admired it in blueprint mode while placing statues and trees around it. But eventually I had the materials to build it, and doing so gave me some peace of mind. I wasn't about to let Myrtle burn the whole place to the ground. That's when I realized that my lumber industry was a bit out of whack, so I took a moment to relocate a couple of things, which dramatically improved its efficiency. Then I went back to the villa to add a guest house for my specialist. Pro tip: the period key rotates buildings in small increments. I didn't know that, but if I had, this would have been way easier. I realize now that I also placed the whole building backwards, which is kind of embarrassing. But it really shows how well the game handles building on challenging terrain. I also appreciate that you can clip sub-buildings into the main structure to make it feel like one cohesive building. The whole system is really well done. Now at this point, I wanted to improve health coverage, so I built the Medici building. This made a huge difference, but it pushed me into the red once again. Now I assumed it would drop into blueprint mode automatically because I knew it would push me into the red, but no, it built it immediately. Yes, you can deficit spend, but if you do it for too long, the Emperor will remove you from office. That's when I started to panic. I only had a 4-hour window to play, and a dev was watching me do so. And I was recording this for a video, this video that you're watching right now, and it was starting to look like I might lose. So I opened the floodgates. I let anyone who would move into the city. I had tons of resources, so expansion was easy. I also realized that I'd never connected the road to the bakery, so I fixed that quickly. And with all that sorted, my balance swung back into the green, and this time I was actually making decent money for a bit. So of course, I started detailing again. And unfortunately, even with my Vigil, Myrtle found a way to burn down a few blocks. Thankfully, the fire was near the station, so it got put out quickly, and it never reached my villa, though I'm pretty sure the guest house got a little toasty. And within a few minutes, my financial situation was dramatically improving and many of my early homes were ready to be upgraded. Then I got another citizen interaction. A Libertus came in asking for a new Villicus. Apparently, their current one was treating them worse than slaves, forcing them to work past sunset, and they gave me 3 options. Number 1, spend 5,000 denarii to appoint a new Villicus and improve happiness. Number 2, accept 5,000 denarii as a bribe and ignore the issue, which would hurt happiness for a time. Number 3, reassign the liberty and do nothing. No gain, but no cost. Listen, I was broke, so you can probably guess what I had to do. Sorry, Liberty. But here's the thing, actions have consequences, and this one made my people pretty unhappy. So I had to build a cohorts building, essentially a police station to help restore order. It slightly lowered my income, but it raised happiness, and it left me 3,700 denarii in the positive, so I'll call that a win. So I built a second Vigil, upgraded more homes, and then the game nudged me to build a shipyard. Now, I didn't realize this at the time, but this was, without a doubt, the most important thing I was going to build today. Placing the shipyard increased my reputation with Targon and reminded me that I had a ship that was just sitting around, so once again I started exploring. Then I was given my next quest, build a ship, so I explored my options. There were 2 types of ships available, one for trade and exploration and one for military conquest. Both require wood, rope, and sails. Rope is made from hemp, so I had 2 choices: expand my hemp supply or redirect some of it away from tunic production, and I of course chose the less efficient route and added a new rope maker and a hemp farm. I also added a sail maker, though I forgot to add a second sheep farm. Thankfully, it seems like things worked out okay for us. I tied everything together with one more warehouse. Then I checked out this ship configuration wizard, which was really cool. You can add different modules to ships for different bonuses. Archers for protection, extra rowers for speed, etc. Everything costs money and resources, so I just window shopped. Meanwhile, I realized I didn't have enough liberty to staff all my buildings, so time to expand once again. And after a few minutes, I had the materials and the money to build my first ship. Around the same time, I unlocked 2 buildings, the Sanctuary and the Grammaticus. Here's where my regrets start to pile up. I only built the Sanctuary, but I should have built the Grammaticus too, because that's how you access research and the tech tree. I didn't do that at all. But thanks to a happy accident, I was sent footage of the tech tree from someone else's playthrough, so let's take a look at that. There are 3 research tracks: economic, civic, and military. You progress by earning knowledge points, which I assume are tied to how many research buildings you have. For example, researching the upgrade for the trading post takes 27 minutes, so yeah, building the Grammaticus early and starting your research fast is probably a good idea. It's also non-linear, which lets you choose your own adventure, which is incredibly exciting. I've always loved when there are tech trees like this in games, rather than those that force you down a singular path. That said, you don't need to build one to progress. Since plebes require only religion or education, I accidentally chose religion and forgot all about Grammaticus. Oops. One more thing that I missed, military interaction. So here's a little preview of that, and now we'll get back to my playthrough. Now, interestingly, I was about to place the Grammaticus, but then I saw that my ship was ready and I got distracted. I mean, of course, I had to take a look at it and maybe even see if it could set sail anywhere. Then I started looking around the island and got sidetracked again, admiring the ruins from the civilization that once lived on the island. I decided to build my first bridge out to the disaster zone, a nice scenic touch in my opinion. And by now, I've completely lost track of both the Sanctuary and Grammaticus and moved on to shoemaking, another plebeian requirement. I built another bridge to access land across the river. It felt like the perfect spot for a pig farm and a tannery, close enough to reach it, but far enough to keep the smell away. I also added salt ponds by the harbor, though in hindsight, I probably should have placed them closer to the tannery. And all of this was labor intensive, so I added more residences while expanding the industry. And after plopping a warehouse, I had a fully functional sandal supply chain. Unfortunately, I also had another massive fire. Same neighborhood as before. Did I react? No. It was time to start making soap instead. Now, this is another supply chain that I didn't really need since shoemaking covered the exact same needs, but of course, I didn't realize that, so on to soap making. Soap requires pigs, a renderer, and lavender. Lavender makes people happy, so I planted it right in town near my villa. And that's when I figured out that tapping on the period key changes the grid orientation for roads and farms. And that completely reshaped how I thought about road building and farm making. It's such a fantastic tool. I then placed the renderer near my pig farms, which is honestly kind of dark. Unsurprisingly, it made the pig farm a bit unhappy. And finally, I placed the soap maker itself. Now, this needs to be placed in the middle of the city to maximize its area effect. The radius tool makes it really easy to figure out the optimal spot, which is pretty cool. It decreases happiness, but it also boosts health, so it's a good thing. I also realized that my charcoal supply chain was bottlenecked, so I built a kiln near the pig farm and then finally decided to tackle religion. Now, as I mentioned earlier, you need either religion or education to upgrade the plebes. So I cleared out a few homes and placed the sanctuary right in the heart of town. And wow, what a stunning building. And I love how it molds to the terrain beautifully. And when you build a sanctuary, you get to choose a god to worship. Each one boosts a different production chain by a percentage depending on how many citizens believe in them. For example, if enough people worship Mars, he'll boost your sandal production and all related supply chains. Now, I accidentally picked Mars first, which helped with sandal production, but not much else that I was working on. So I switched to Ceres, god of agriculture, who boosted my wheat and porridge chains. Neptune was also available, and he would have boosted my sardine and garum supply chains. But in my opinion, Ceres is perfect for my setup. Should even help with wine later on, though I never got that far in this playthrough. Now at this point, I was eager to upgrade my plebeians again, but I was still missing one requirement: household goods. To fulfill that, I'd need either olive oil or amphory. Problem was, neither of them could be produced on my current island. Now, if you hover over a resource, the game tells you where it can be made, and I really wish I had noticed this sooner. It probably would have saved me a fair amount of time. But before I could do anything, I had to unlock those goods. So I expanded my city and upgraded more citizens. I also experimented with more bridges. And while you can't build them everywhere, the tool is incredibly flexible and fun. Now, this was the point where I also realized that you could curve roads by tapping on the period key, which is another handy discovery. And eventually, enough plebeians moved into my community to unlock both amphory and olive oil. But unfortunately, while my island has a number of important resources, it doesn't contain resin or have olive fertility, so I needed to find another island. Now, I could have chosen to settle one of the uninhabited islands that I'd already discovered, but I guess I like doing things the hard way. I didn't realize that those islands had the fertility that I needed, so I went searching again and eventually found a nearby island with both resin and olive fertility, so it was kind of perfect. So I sailed to the island with the intention to build a trading post, but that would put me in the red again. And this time, I'd be doing it right in front of the Emperor since I was purchasing it directly from him. I hesitated, and then I did it anyway. Welcome to Venta, and welcome back to Budget Crisis Mode. To get started on Venta, I had to build a villa. Yes, you have to build one on every single island that you settle. It feels a little bit extra, but okay. I found a spot with a nice view and dropped it in, and thankfully, it didn't seem to cost me anything. And at least this time, the villa isn't facing the mountains, so I'll call that a win. Next, I got to work building a forester and a sawmill so that I could put up houses. Then, I built a roof tile supply chain to prepare for upgrades, and slowly worked towards unlocking resin and olives. Then, I popped back over to Elysium to expand and slow my financial bleed. I managed to stabilize things a bit, but things didn't feel as efficient as before. Back on Venta, I slammed down homes to attract migrants, but it takes time and I wasn't feeling patient, so I kept building and my balance kept dropping. Around negative 5,000 denarii, things finally began to turn around. But then a fire broke out in Elysium, back deep into the red. So I kept pushing on Venta, trying to upgrade it to attract plebeians, but that's really hard to do without money. Negative 6,000, then negative 6,300. Just then, I received a quest from some Liberty who wanted to attend an event on a distant island. I agreed because I could use the distraction, honestly. So I picked them up, and I was ready to set sail when my advisor reminded me that my debts were deep enough that the Emperor might strip me of my governorship. At this point, I felt defeated. I was 3 hours into my playthrough and staring down a loss. Sure, I could complete a contract, but 996 denarii wouldn't even dent my deficit. And that's when I realized something. I had actually built 3 ships instead of 1. The ships are worth money, so I sold 2 of them for 25,000 denarii each, and instantly I was richer than I had been at any point in the game. Crisis averted. Fun fact, I did all of this while the game was paused, and I don't think that was possible in Anno 1800, so I'm really glad it's an option here. It gave me a bit of time to regroup, and I needed it. With my budget fixed, it was time to get moving on Venta. I completed the Liberty supply chains and welcomed our first plebeians to the island. They built roof tiles first, then moved on to olive farms and resin tapping. I expanded fast, and the budget slowly came into balance. I also dropped the Liberty off for their event and met Diana, a leader who was happy to trade for as much lavender as I could give her. She also gave me a mission to retrieve a package from a governor named Valeria. Her island was gorgeous. Palm trees and buildings embracing the curvature of the roads, architecture that felt totally different from mine. It was a really nice discovery. Back on Venta, I prepped my trade ship to bring resin and olive oil back to Elysium. Only problem, I have no idea how to unload my current cargo. So I dumped it into the ocean. Don't judge me. I had to do what I had to do. Then I loaded up the goods and sent them home. In Elysium, I finally built a potter in anticipation of the incoming resin. And between that and the olive oil, I would finally be ready to fulfill the household good requirements for my plebeians and get them upgraded. This was my current quest, and the last one I figured I'd be able to meet before my time with the game was done. While I waited for deliveries, I kept building, and the economy kept getting better. More homes, more expansion, a second olive farm, another olive press. I was racing the clock. Back at Elysium, I pushed hard. My budget was soaring. 200 denarii per tick, then 250, then 300. Growth was working, and then it happened. My first plebeians level up to equities, and with that, I was on to my final quest. Reach 150 of them. And with every upgrade, my city looked grander, and my revenue soared past 400 gold, and my bank balance past 50,000. I kept pushing. More homes, more upgrades, and then bam.
In the Emperor's eyes, you shine like a beacon, an example to all other governors.
4 hours, 1 grand Roman city, and it left me wanting more. By the end, I didn't want to stop. I'd just gotten a handle of the mechanics, and I was ready to start another city. But my time was up. Anno 117 Pax Romana is stunning. It feels like Anno 1800 but refined. The learning curve is there, just like always, but once it clicks, it's absolutely addictive. I can't wait to play it again when it releases late this year. Don't forget, you can wishlist it now so you get a reminder when it drops. I want to give one more huge shout out to Ubisoft for sponsoring this video, as well as giving me access to Anno 117 Pax Romana early. It was a ton of fun. I really enjoyed it. Thank you so much for watching, everybody. If you enjoyed this, please consider hitting the like button. If you're not subscribed to the channel, please consider doing so. There's a million things you could have been doing today. You decided to hang out with me and build a cute little Roman village, and for that, I appreciate you and I appreciate your time. Thank you so much for joining me, and I can't wait to see you in the next one. Take care. Bye-bye.